everyone. Welcome and welcome back to Pittsburgh CLO Close-Ups. I'm Olivia O'Connor. I'm the manager of New Work Development at Pittsburgh CLO. And it's Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern, which means we are live on Facebook and YouTube for Spark the Conversation. If you're joining us for the first time, thank you so much for choosing to spend your time with us. If you're tuning back in, thanks for coming back. We're so happy to have you. This is a 30-minute live stream in which we catch up with alums from our New Musicals initiative. So we have a chat, we have show and tell, we wrap up with a fun list of 5, and throughout we'll also have time for questions from those of you watching live. So if during the conversation you find yourself curious about something, you want to know more, you can drop a question directly into the comments on Facebook and YouTube, and we'll pull it over later in the show. These episodes are also recorded and posted to our Facebook, our YouTube page, our website, so that you can watch belatedly. And if you are joining us later, hi, thanks so much for joining. And of course, please like, share, subscribe, share with someone you think would enjoy. So today, I am so very excited to welcome the writing team of Game On, composer David Dabbon and book writer lyricist Marcus Stevens. Game On began its journey at CLO as a commission and was first featured as a reading in our 2018 Spark Festival of New Musicals. We continued the show's development that summer in a New York reading and then opened the world premiere production at the CLO Cabaret in the fall of 2018. This show is such a delight. It takes a really fun concept, an interactive game show, and then deepens it into a narrative musical with really sensitively developed characters and a twist that, depending on your point of view, is spiritual, existential. It's really unique and wonderful, and we loved having it here. In its time at CLO, it was directed by Jen Weinman, and that production featured an incredible cast: Chris Latta, Jason Shavers, Connor McCandless, Josie Miller, and Marissa Buchheit. I am so excited to chat with David and Marcus and catch up with them today. So let's say hello. Hi, David. Hi, Marcus. Welcome.
Hey.
Hey, so good to see you both.
It's so good to see you.
Oh, you both have like such wonderful smiles. It's great to have your energy here today. Thanks for coming to say hello to us. So how are you both? And where are you both right now in your quarantines?
Well, I'm at my in-laws' house in Virginia, in Richmond, Virginia. It was a really difficult decision to make, but we have an almost 3-year-old, and we sort of felt like we were living on the Upper West Side in New York. We still have our apartment there, but we just felt like being cooped up in our little apartment with a toddler for the unforeseeable future was no way for him to be a kid. And so we were like, okay, we're gonna go to Virginia. And luckily, my in-laws are amazing people, and we now have some like extra childcare. We have a backyard that we didn't have, so we feel very lucky and very fortunate that we can sort of quarantine in this way.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah, it's so hard to explain to a 2-year-old like you can't touch things. That's a very difficult conversation to have.
Yeah, and he's such a New York kid. Like he literally the last day that we were in New York, he wanted to do everything that he couldn't do. He was like, "Can we go to my favorite bakery and get a croissant?" And we were like, "No." "Can we ride the subway?" "No." "Can we ride a bus?" "No." "Can we go to the dinosaur museum?" It was like,
that sounds like a great day.
I mean, that's like a Saturday for him.
Right, yeah.
So he's really adjusting. He's becoming a very sort of suburban, woodsy kid right now. We're like taking these nature walks, and he's finding pine cones and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of fun to watch him sort of be opened up to a whole other world of living that he never really experienced before. So that's kind of cool.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And David, how are you? I know you are in New York still.
Yeah, I'm up in Washington Heights. I'm here with my partner. I've got a cat, Giacomo, and we've been quarantining since March 12th. Right when this was all starting, my partner was supposed to fly across country, and we started hearing things going down, and he ended up not flying, luckily, that day. And so at that moment, we went grocery shopping, and we knew things were going quite quickly, and we've been here since. yeah, my mom moved to the city last May, about a year ago.
Oh, wow,
She
I
ended
didn't
up
know that.
going that exact weekend down to Florida to be with her husband. And then my sister lives in Philadelphia near my dad just moved there too. So we've all sort of adapted, but it's tricky. My mom's constantly trying to get us to go down to Florida, but then you think about, how do we get there? And
Right.
but we've definitely figured out our routine here, and everything from groceries to working out. Every morning we start off with an Amazon Prime workout.
But an Amazon Prime workout?
Yeah, so somebody had told us, go on Amazon Prime and type in exercise, and there are all these videos. And so we've been doing one every single day.
Oh, that's great.
Which
Is it like a cardio? Is it weights?
Yeah, everything
It
from
just depends on the
cardio to
day.
weights to
Okay.
using body weight. And we don't have weights, but we were able to find some through the gym in our building.
Yeah.
So it's we're there working with the TV, and we see Josephine, and we're like, "Hey, Josephine!" So it's all good.
Oh, that's great. So by the end of this, you'll have a new layer of muscle to go out into the world.
Yes, that's the hope.
I'm gonna be the opposite of that, David. I'm just gonna have like extra pounds. Like we're gonna see how far the two of us can go in the opposite two directions.
Yeah, both very acceptable courses of action
Totally.
in quarantine,
Perfectly.
I feel. Whatever you need to do. So both of you, I want to mention, have connections not just to Pittsburgh CLO, but you both have very long histories with Pittsburgh and many other places in this city. And so my first question for you is, I'd love to hear a little bit about your histories with Pittsburgh and your many connections to this city.
I first came to Pittsburgh when I was in high school, my senior year. I applied to both Carnegie Mellon and Point Park, and I went to the audition at Point Park, and I visited the campus at Carnegie Mellon. And I had auditioned for Carnegie Mellon at in New York City. And when I stepped on the campus of CMU, I was like, I want to go here. Like, it was like, just felt like my connection was there. It was, I just knew I belonged. And I stood on the corner of the campus, and I kid you not, leaves were circling around. It was a very Kismet sort of feeling. And then I ended up getting rejected from Carnegie Mellon years later. So I went to my undergrad at the Hart School in Connecticut, and I was performing then. And about my junior year, I switched over to created my own degree in music direction and composition. And I was a self-taught pianist, and my music was sort of very based on what I could create. Mm-hmm. And my piano teacher at the time was telling me like I was a terrible pianist. I was not going to make it as a musician. And so I didn't know what to do. So I applied to grad school, and I applied to 2 schools. And one of them was Carnegie Mellon. And I actually got rejected for instrumental conducting. I didn't know anything about conducting or instrumental classical music. And then about 2 months later, I got an email from a professor at Carnegie Mellon, Robert Page, who was the head of the choral studies at Carnegie Mellon. He said, "David, I came across your resume. You seem like a perfect candidate for this. Do you want to apply?" Mm-hmm. And I knew nothing also about choral music. I never conducted a choir. And I told my mom, I don't know, I'm not right for this program. And she said, "David, you should just go. They came after you. You wanted to go to Carnegie Mellon." And so I show up, I conduct a choir where I had no idea what I was doing. I had the wrong sheet music. It was in German. But he really, I think he liked that I was excited about working with vocalists and singers and curious. And I didn't know at the time that he was like one of the most renowned choral conductors in the country. And so because I came from theater background and he had such love for theater, it was a really great marriage of understanding music and him understanding my background in dance. And during my time there, I applied for an internship at CLO. And that's kind of how I got in the door there. And so it was nice to have all these Pittsburgh connections.
Yeah. And it's been so much fun to have you back in the city for different readings and for production. And
it's definitely my home away from New York. So Thank you for always being there.
Oh, of course. And also, I hear that we have some cast members from Game On watching. So Chris,
Yay!
Josie, Jason, Marissa, and Tuan, our assistant director, is
Oh my
watching.
God.
So hi, folks. Thanks for joining us. We miss you all. We hope you're all well. And Marcus, I want to turn it over to you to hear about your Pittsburgh story. You've got a lot of connections here too.
Yeah, I mean, like David, I would say that it's sort of like a home away from home. Like it's, in fact, so I grew up outside of Philadelphia, but most people, because of how much I have worked and lived in Pittsburgh, most people are like, "You're from Pittsburgh, right?" And I'm like, "Sort of."
Honorarily.
I went to school at Point Park, and I went for musical theater acting, and I sort of, the wonderful thing about Point Park is, and CMU, I mean, pretty much the great thing about all the theater schools in Pittsburgh is that you become sort of enmeshed in the, professional theater scene in Pittsburgh, because everybody who's teaching at school is a professional in their, in that city. So, that was sort of the most incredible thing. It was one of the reasons why I decided to go to Point Park, and I ended up sort of writing my first musical that was produced by Point Park, and I was in the first cast of Forever Plaid at CLO, which was basically, I think it was like my second professional job in the city after college.
Yeah.
And it was the most amazing thing, because they opened the CLO Cabaret and it ran, I mean, the whole thing was like, we're doing an open-ended run. It could be here for a year. We were like, what? It was, for a kid right out of college who all they wanted to do was be an actor. It was like, I mean, I felt like I was on Broadway, like, cause I could afford my rent, and I was, driving to work every day, and every day I was acting, and it was great. And so
I should say, Marcus, your performance as Sparky is legend. Like I heard about it as soon as I started at CLO, because you had relationships still as writers with the company. That Sparky has gone down in history as like a truly legendary performance. I wish I had seen it.
That means so much.
Too.
Great. It's funny. I mean, I think I really lucked out, and like, this has sort of been my whole career as an actor, is that I always end up playing the character that, steals the spotlight from everybody else. And it's not because I'm doing that. It's because I have this gap in my teeth, and people put me in that role. And so, I just lucked out that it's like, 4 really funny characters, but my character is like the cut up. And so I was sort of like the, doing all the ridiculous stuff in that show. And at one point I remember they did like an ad campaign, which was Sparky for mayor. And so like,
Yes.
there were like pictures of me on buses all over Pittsburgh, which was one of like the most amazing things that ever happened in my career. But yeah, no, I mean, I love Pittsburgh, and in those, I mean, I think I lived and worked in Pittsburgh as a writer and an actor for maybe 5 or 6 years after school before I moved to New York. And then I continually come back and work there. And it was such a pleasure coming back for Game On, because I hadn't been back in several years. And it was just, it's like coming back home every time I go back home and work with a theater company in Pittsburgh that I worked with when I was a kid.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah.
Well, both of you kind of alluded to this in your answers, and I want to dive in just a little bit more. One of the things that we seem to talk about a lot on Spark the Conversation is the idea of being a multi-hyphenate, someone who moves between roles from project to project, or even on one project, wearing multiple hats. And both of you are really great examples of that. David, you're a composer, you're an arranger, you're an orchestrator, you're a teacher. Marcus, you are a writer, you're a lyricist, you're a performer, you're a director, you're also a teacher. So tell us a little bit about how those different facets of your career have fed one another over the course of your lives.
Do you want to answer that, David, or?
Sure. It's funny. You don't, when you're starting off at a very young age, you're kind of just collecting everything that and you're not quite sure how they're going to either merge or what you're going to spend more time on. It was funny, Marcus, hearing you talk about like all these parts that you get to play that you're able to, get the spotlight on. And I'm thinking about like how you also do that with your writing. It's like you're so good at making sure that each character has a moment to really sparkle and shine, versus it just being about like the story or the plot. There's like that extra element that gives any performer something to really feel like they can put their spotlight on. So, it's hearing that question, I'm like, oh, and me, I love thinking about rhythm in music, and I think that's because of my dance background. I got to work on Beetlejuice this year as the dance arranger, and I never would have imagined as a kid that I'd be the person that would take my dance knowledge and my composition and my arranging and put them all into one job. And it's fun to collect and remove something or add and say, hey, these are my traits. These are the things that I've learned along the way. How can I use them?
Yeah, I think for me, it's I really, in the beginning, I was like, I feel like David, like I had all these interests and I had all these different things I wanted to do. And you sort of feel like you have to pick a lane. Like if you do too much, then, then all of it will be at 50% and nobody's gonna, grab onto it. But I think that ultimately, like what I've been realizing as I've been working and getting older is that like, it's all the same thing. It's all storytelling. That I feel like when I'm writing, I'm also acting. Like when I write lyrics or when I write scenes, I'm improvising as the character. I'm playing all the different characters in the show and thinking about what their journey is and where I'm going. And when I'm acting, I'm thinking about the writing and I'm thinking about what the writer is trying to, the clues that the writer is trying to give me. When I'm directing, I'm sort of putting those two things together. So to me, it's like, it's all just storytelling. And it's all different facets of storytelling that I love. And I often find that the more stuff that I have, the more I'm able to sort of jump around from, like when there isn't acting work, there's writing work and vice versa. Yeah. And so it helps you to continue to thrive in the arts because you have these other things that you do. And as long as you're, and being willing to sort of say like, yeah, I'll direct that. Sure. And then you see what happens, and then years later you go like, oh, I'm a director. I've now directed all of these things. And, so I think it's all just about, we're all doing the same thing. It's just that, it's finding the way that those avenues walk hand in hand, those different jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great way to articulate that. And speaking of your wonderful writing and characters and stories, I want to talk about Game On. And my goodness, this show was so much fun. And like I said, it started as a commission at CLO. We're seeing some B-roll from that wonderful production here. And David, I know that the concept for Game On was yours. And so I'd love to hear from you, what about the world of game shows was exciting to you as you were approaching this project?
Oh my gosh, I love seeing these clips right now.
They look so great.
In the clips, I'm like, what a great show that looks like.
It was.
I remember as a kid always watching the Game Show Network. I was really amazed by especially like game shows of the 1970s and the style. And I was thinking one day, I also love the movie Quiz Show, which is, about something that goes on about a trivia game show in the 1950s. Fabulous movie. And I just kept thinking about the people that are on the game show, why they're there. Is it there to show their intelligence? Is it because, they want the money? And slowly that started getting me thinking about there was a built-in story behind any character that's on a game show. Mm-hmm. They have their backstory, they have the reasons why they're there. There's a time limit of how long they're actually on the game show. So all those things felt very musical to me. It felt heightened. There's a built-in drama. There's the pressure. It deals with fantasy. Mm-hmm. And those felt deeply dramatic.
My show and tell is here.
Folks, we're moving to show and tell. Here we are, show and tell. Yes, You guys are killing it, Becca, and said, hi.
This is my wife, Julia, and my son,
Julia.
Ari.
Hi, Ari.
These are my friends, Olivia and David. Do you want to say hi? Who do you have with you? Who is that? Bananas, his monkey Bananas.
Hi, Bananas.
Hi, Bananas.
Does Bananas want to say hi? What does he say? Oh, he's getting shy.
And my monkey.
And your monkey's shy too? Well, I felt like, you know, we don't have much to share, but my show and tell is just that if you want to know what's getting me.
Dada,
Yeah.
see the pool from your window?
Yeah, I see the pool from my window. So Mimi and Papa's pool is getting cleaned out so that we'll have something to do this summer while we're still
that's
here.
great. Oh, that's so much fun.
Yeah, but no, the only thing about this show and tell is literally that if you want to know how I'm getting through quarantine, this is it right here. Right? Yeah.
Oh, thank you for saying
Yeah.
hi, Ari, and thanks for saying hi, Julia.
Hi.
You want to say bye-bye?
You want to say bye-bye?
No.
No? Okay.
Do you want to take a look at the pool?
He's like, get me out
He's
of
moving on to other things.
He's like, I'm out.
He's done with us.
He's like, that's all I'm giving you. You're lucky that
Oh, thank you so much for saying hi and for bringing him in, Julia. That was so nice.
Of course.
And
how grown up he is.
I know. David, like the last time David saw him, he was super little. It's so crazy to see, like they grow up. Like he's such a person now, and he's got like his own sense of humor. He's got his own, you can't see a lot of it now because he's like very shy on these Zoom things. When he's in his element and he's, he's just, it's amazing because you're like, oh my gosh, you're now a tiny human. You're no longer a baby.
Yeah.
You're a person and you have your wants and your things that you don't like. And
yeah. And how nice, I'm sure you're getting to spend so much time together.
That's really yes. That's really such a silver lining, is that both Julia and I are spending so much more time with him than we did when we were working full time in the city.
Yeah.
It also makes it harder because you're trying to work and you're trying to do, preschool on Zoom every morning, and
yeah, of course,
and be as present for him as you can. So it's a lot, but but it is so wonderful to be able to see him so much during the day. And spend so much time with him, and I sort of take solace in the fact that I feel like at his age he's going to look back at this, and if he remembers any of it, it'll be that he had this like great time living at his grandparents' house and like playing with his parents every day.
Yes.
So hopefully, knock on wood. But
yeah. Oh, that's great. And so, David, I want to turn things back to you to both finish your answer about Game On, and then we'll move into your show and tell too. But I also want to mention, if you're watching and you want to know more, because there's so much that we could be talking about with you too. My goodness, if you want to know more about something about these two, please post it in the comments and we'll pull some questions over. But David, I'll throw things over to you to finish telling us a little bit about Game On, and then your show and tell.
So in terms of how it started, I think that was my curiosity about game shows and thinking that was a really good heart in the genesis of creating a story. I thought all those elements of a game show would be really important to put into it. And actually, Ari was born around the time when we had started Game On, so we'll always know how old the show is.
That's totally true. That's right. It's like we've got our show baby and my real baby. It was a really different process for it was the first time Marcus and I had also written together. And we wrote the show in less than a year before we went into production, which is, I think, doesn't happen very often. So it was a really quick process of figuring out how we wanted to write and what the story was and how to tell these characters background through song and text and what the relationships are. And what was kind of neat about Spark too was the limitations of five
actors and figuring out how do you get creative. And the moment that we could have an immersive thing, we also got to use the audience as an extra character, which was really fun to explore.
Yeah. And one of the things I really love about the show is that its protagonist, Grace, is not a character we see at the center of much musical theater or even theater in general. You know, she's a middle-aged mom of adult kids, and the show really focusing on her journey, I think, is something that's really unique and wonderful about the show.
I think it was something that was very important to both of us, was telling a story of, you know, I think we all know people that constantly are giving to other individuals, especially their family, and there comes a point when, you know, all those people sort of either have gone out. How does that person deal with it? How do they take care of themselves? And I think there's something very beautiful about that and hopeful. You know, thinking about where we are now, and we have no idea what's happening next, and how do we cope with that, and what are the possibilities of what we have, and how do we decide, you know, second chances? What does a second chance mean?
No, I mean, I think, you know, David brought the idea to me, and I think the thing that both of us sort of landed on was this idea of, like, we can use this in a very sort of Thornton Wildery way to talk about everyday people and everyday needs, and things that don't get discussed that often. You know, I think the whole idea was like, let's see if we can put a lens on some characters that we don't necessarily see portrayed in drama, because they would be seen as like not interesting enough, or not, you know, not dramatic enough. But the idea was like that everybody's life, especially the choices that you make in your life, be them big choices or small choices, are really, really dramatic for you, the protagonist. And the idea was, you know, in your own story. And the idea was that, you know, a game show, that's basically what it is it's a pressure cooker of making choices. And we were like, well, can we make it a metaphor about life? And that was really what hooked me, is that, you know, David came to me with the game show idea, and I like game shows, but when we started talking about what it could actually mean, I was like, oh, well, this is...
Because it actually isn't, the game show is not as important as the characters and their relationships with each other. And that's something that I think we've constantly gone back to every time we go to rewrite or refocus or want to cut a song. We always go back to, like, well, what do these characters need and want in their life? What's important to them?
Yeah.
Oh, it's such a wonderful show, and I can't wait to see what's next for it.
Thank you. You know, you were a big part of also helping us shape it and cheering it on. So thanks for all that throughout that.
David, I want to turn things over to you for your very special show and tell. What are you showing and telling us today?
I am going to, I had a couple ideas, but I think I'm going to show this picture behind me, which I don't know if you can see. It's hard to show without.
We can see it, maybe a little bit higher.
There we go. So it is a painting my uncle, Uncle Jacques, had painted. It was something he was working on a lot when I was a kid. I would see him, he would put it on his dining room table and constantly retouch it. He had explored, like, a lot of the colors, how to do the clouds, specifically like the texture of the brick, the shading here, the woman right here walking. It was a photograph he had taken, and he had passed in 2016. And when all of cousins and family were trying to figure out things, this picture was so important to me, because I have so many memories of him and working on it. And he was someone that was very focused and proud of what he would create. And he was a scientist and loved music and was a beautiful musician and obviously painter. And it just is a reminder of many things about life and how to focus and taking the time. And so that's my show and tell.
Oh, it's so beautiful. What a wonderful thing to have in your life, both like the reminder of family and a really beautiful piece of art too. That's so cool.
And it's so tranquil.
It really is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us, David. So before we move into our last segment, I do want to ask you one more question, Marcus, because you have another show with CLO Connections,
Yeah.
of course, Mythic, which CLO was a producer on and has had 2 productions now, one at the Charing Cross Theatre in London, one at the Seagull Centre in Montreal. Can you tell us, do you know what is next for Mythic? TBD right now?
I mean, it's TBD because the theater is TBD.
Of course.
You know, we are, you know, I can tell you that we were sort of like, there were a lot of things in the pipeline, and the pipeline is sort of at the moment, but I do feel like, you know, what is really wonderful is that there are a lot of people interested in the show. There's a lot of it's been great to like we developed, like, in both London and Montreal, we developed these sort of like Mythic fans that now like follow the show, and I've just never had that kind of thing with anything that I've written. So you know, my collaborator on that, or on Eldor, and we constantly say, like, I believe that the show always finds a way, because the show always kind of does. Like it started as this thing where, I mean, we thought about giving up on it, you know, many years. You know, it's like it just keeps sort of like coming back and finding its audience, and so I trust that when all of this is, you know, all of this is behind us, that there will be a life for it.
Yeah. And in the meantime, I should say there's a wonderful cast recording of the show, so folks can listen to the music. It has a fantastic score, and it's so much fun to listen to. So that will tide us over until
go on to Spotify and listen to the original London cast recording. We're super proud of it. It sounds, I mean, Oram did an amazing job producing it, and we're really proud of that album. So
awesome! Oh, I'm so glad. So I want to close out our day today with our segment Thank You 5, which on Tuesdays we use as an opportunity to list things that we appreciate or are grateful for. We've done a different list every week. And if you're watching and you have an idea for a list, please send me it. Please post it in the comments, because we're in week 6 now, and I'm going to need some help coming up with future lists. But I have a really great one today for both of you, because you are both experienced teachers, and you have some really wonderful educational connections to Pittsburgh. So my question for you are, who are 5 of the mentors or teachers who have had an impact on your life? And I always say to people, so you don't freak out, this does not have to be a definitive list, just 5 that come to mind who have had an impact on your life.
Oh, man.
I'll let you think for a second.
Yeah, there are so many. Well, I will say that one of the major people at Point Park is a gentleman named Scott Wise, who directed me in Floyd Collins and A New Brain and all these wonderful shows, and really taught me what storytelling is. And ultimately, he was the person that I brought my first piece of writing to. And I was so nervous, and I was like, can you just look at this? And he really approached me like I was just, like I wasn't a kid, like I was, you know, like he was really honest with me. And ultimately, he was the one that like said, like, we're gonna get a workshop of this. We're gonna produce it at the school, and so I'm so grateful to him for that. It's really funny because like most of the teachers that I'm thinking of are Pittsburgh people, so that's great. Another one is Guy Stroman, who directed Forever Plaid, who has a long history with the CLO. He directed 39 Steps at the Cabaret. He is just such a giving, amazing human. And he really he was like the kind of person that I just like needed at that time. Like he was like, you can do this. You know, like it's like you're right out of school and you're scared out of your mind. And I would say my parents.
Yeah.
My parents are amazing teachers. They taught me how to speak up for myself and be myself. That's 3. Let's see. I've got 2 more. I'll say that the one great teacher that I had like before I left the city, and I didn't really think of him as a teacher. I was more like sort of like working with him and sort of like intimidated him was Ted Pappas, and Ted Pappas sort of like took me aside before I moved to New York. And the one thing that he said to me, which really meant a lot, was he said, "Don't think of other people's successes just mean that success is possible." Is you know, he was like, don't beat yourself up about, you know, trying to be in competition with anybody but yourself, and just go and do your thing and tell your story. So that meant a lot. And I mean, I would say that like, because the Pittsburgh theater community is so vibrant and so full of teachers, I couldn't like, I would have to say like the entire like the faculty of Point Park, the you know, the folks at CLO, the folks at City Theater that I worked with. I mean, like there were just so many amazing people that sort of shaped who I was gonna be.
Yeah.
So
that's your honorary 5th.
That's my honorary 5th. Yeah. all of those Pittsburgh teachers who really just kind of like, you know, I never would have been able to to take that next step and go to New York without them. So
awesome.
Yeah.
David, who are your 5?
Very first one I'd have to list is Dr. Page, Robert Page. He was known for having these incredible eyebrows that would lift and use they would bush out so that they would stare at you, and our lessons would always be with him with his arms crossed with his bushy eyebrows, and I'd be across from his desk. And I really learned not just what it means to be a musician or to be a better artist, but how to respect artists in a different way, as well as what it means to be a teacher. He really knew how to teach. I think a phrase that I've been using lately was that I really have figured out for myself, but I think I learned it from him, was he really taught me how to encourage students versus empower them. Because I think he did that with me. He was always encouraging me and trying to let me be aware of what made me thrive and curious, and what things to explore, and how to approach things in a way that I understood, that might not work for everybody else, but worked for me, as well as like keeping a very high caliber. And he was able to do it by calling me out and being wise and clever and warm, and was very much a role model, both for his musicianship and also his ability to love people and art together at the same time. So he's biggest on my list. I also had a teacher in the 6th grade who I did not have as an actual teacher, but he was our middle school teacher. He was our middle school director, excuse me. That he saw me perform in the 6th grade, and there was like another kid in the show that was not doing as good of a job and was not working on his lines, and the teacher pulled me over. He says, "I know that you know the part, and I want you to be ready. Not that I'm going to give it to you, but I just want you to be ready, because I know that you think really well, and you should never stop thinking the way that you are. And I just remember that that moment that was like, oh, okay, I'm seen for he gets me. So that was something that I think of that moment very much. I also have to think of my parents, my sister as well. My mom's very creative. Everything from food to art to problem solving. My mom's the best problem solver. So I take that with me. My sister played piano and did a lot of musicals. So she was very influential in my curiosity also into getting to the arts. She was a really big thing for me. I guess also students I work with are a really big influence for me. They are constantly teaching me things that I need to work on and reminding me of things that I've forgotten and that I want to incorporate into my life. And then I think I have one more. Also, I have to add my partner too, Andy, who's, when he's spectacular musician, who also understands both people and music. And I feel very fortunate that I have such a great relationship with someone who understands what I do and I understand what he does, and we're constantly teaching each other things and working on projects together that are able to push us, and it's something I feel very grateful for. I think those are my 5.
Those are great lists. Those were wonderful and expansive lists, and very much in the spirit of Thank You 5. It's hard to get down to 5. So I totally feel you on the categories of people. Well deserved. It has been such a pleasure chatting with you both. And I have to say, every week we say it's a 30-minute live stream and then we go over. But it's so wonderful talking to you and getting to hear from you that I really honestly appreciate the extra time that you give us too, as well as our audiences give us. So thank you for chatting.
It was so great seeing you.
Yeah, it was great to chat with you.
Oh, so great to see you both. Stay healthy and well, and I hope you and yours same thing. All right, bye, you both.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you all so much for joining us. This was a pleasure. Be sure to tune in next Tuesday at 3 p.m. We are going to be chatting with Brian Quijada, the writer and composer of Somewhere Over the Border. This Thursday at 5 p.m., Mark is going to be chatting with Charles Shaughnessy, Dana Griffith, and Jessica Val Ortiz. That's going to be a super fun conversation. If you haven't checked out Google Doc Musical, please do. We are still writing. We're in the home stretch here. And even if you just want to chime in with a few sentences, don't be shy. We're happy to have you. I want to thank Steph, Becca, and Sid for always making the show look great, as well as Becca and Sid in our control room. Thank you, and hi. You're the best. Thank you. And thank you all so much for supporting Pittsburgh CLO and the arts in Pittsburgh. We'll see you next week.